I'm going to skip through a few slides so we can get you out and give you a nice amount of time for lunch here today. Okay, so I believe we are on, let me see what slide number we are on. We should be on slide number
18, 19.
Yeah, I'm going to skip over a study that was done about what income. I got to skip that study, but because I got to get through the admin, the paperwork, and all what's going to happen when you fill out your retirement paperwork. Okay, what I want you to do, I want you to go to page 16, 15 and 16, bottom of 15. Now, before I get into this, I've kind of beaten this to death, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I want to cover the admin of what you're going to go through when you actually retire, and then I'm going to take you through a planning model of how to integrate everything we're going to cover into one clean process on one sheet of paper. Okay? Now, before I get started, if anybody wants to volunteer the number that they came up with, was that number what, like on this budgeting exercise with your inflation factor, was that number what you thought it would be, more than you thought or less than you thought? More. Okay, that's fine. You know what? I was expecting that. Very few people tell me, yeah, it was a lot less. Now, usually when you plug in that inflation factor, it's usually a lot more. And listen, don't like just shut this whole thing off now and go, well, I guess now I can't retire. Please give this class a chance. If you apply shrink the gap principles, you'll be shocked at how quickly you can catch up. But you got to think in terms of shrinking your gap. I'm going to give you a technique tomorrow morning that if you title your health care right in retirement, you can save, if you're married, you can save as much as $250 a month by titling your health care right. Potentially. I'm not guaranteeing that. It's a couple different pivot plays. If you tie them together and it applies to you, you can save $250. That's like see, we're thinking in terms of how much we have to save. That's the problem. But by saving $250 a month, that's $3,000 a year. That's an extra $75,000 in your thrift at a 4% withdrawal rate, just by titling your health care right. So think in terms of shrinking your gap, and I'm telling you, don't get discouraged, even if that number's bigger. Okay, now, a couple things to jump ahead. We're on the bottom of page 15. I talked about this before, how our parents looked at retirement. I just want to highlight some things that, you know, they work for the same company typically and work to age 65 and receive. I talked about that already. So I didn't mention Social Security, but Social Security was an ironclad promise to them that, you know, they were going to get, you know, Social Security was going to buy them some groceries and pay for a vacation or two. And, you know, that's true. The thing is, back when they were getting a check, there were probably 16 people kicking into the system for every person receiving benefits. Today, it's 3 to 1. Now, I'm not saying Social Security is going away, but you can't, I can also do math. And to say that them making changes to the system are not realistic would be ridiculous. You know, I think a lot of people think, I'm not getting a Social Security check. Why do you bother even going? That's not true. But to say that they're not going to change the system down the road, you know, if you take a look at the math, they might. Okay, so our plans we have to create the ability to pivot for what if Social Security changes. Your parents never had to worry about that, and they taught us about money. I'm just giving that as an example. Okay? Now, listen, it's different today. We're retiring younger, living longer, which is the good news. Retirement's been redefined to an active, independent lifestyle, one that has purpose. Now, listen, if you plan for this part of your life appropriately and in the right way, this is the best period of time of a person's life typically. More so now than it ever has been. University of Michigan does a retirement satisfaction survey every year, measuring how satisfied people are in retirement. And in 2019, I haven't seen the numbers on 2020, but retirement satisfaction was at a 5-year high. Now, it's based on two things, and it's the only time I'm going to bring it up. But your ability to plan for retirement in advance is one thing. What that meant is, they weren't getting hit with too many surprises. Why? Because they thought of every question they could think of regarding retirement planning and answered it, even if they didn't like the answer they were giving. This is the advice I would say to you. Okay, this has nothing to do with, you know, well, it does partially. But you'll be more satisfied in retirement if you can answer every question you can think of when it comes to retirement planning. Even if you're not comfortable with the answer you're giving, you're better off answering the question than hiding your head in the sand. Okay? Why am I saying that? There's a thing called regret that will weigh on a soul. So what I would say to you is, Answer every question you can think of. Even if you're thinking that's not a good answer, but it is the answer. You're better off doing that as opposed to, hey, you're getting a little too close here. I don't want to think about it. It's not going to happen to me. Okay, you're going to regret if that happens to you is my point. You know, like I'll give you, last thing I'm going to talk about tomorrow is long-term care. Who likes thinking about ending up in a nursing home? I know I don't. But you got to think, how would I pay for it if I end up there? Now, you could say I'm going to do nothing. That's an answer. I choose to do nothing. And you might say that after I go through all the options. I don't know. You might say I choose to do something. At least you put down an answer, as opposed to, I don't want to think about it. Just don't go there. Okay, because if you end up there, you're going to be bitter with the second answer. Like, I don't want to go there. You're going to go, I didn't know this was going to happen. Well, you didn't want to think about it. So just, hit it head on. Answer it. You might say, I'm going to do nothing because I can't do everything. And then, okay. It's just, life is choices. So you'll feel more satisfied if you do that. Hit it head on and make a decision. Also, this is the only time I'm going to bring it up, but I did ask you these two questions, the question at the beginning. Social network and frequency of interaction. We go through 3 big changes when we retire, and the first one is going to be what we focus in on, the financial changes. But I would be irresponsible if I didn't bring up the other 2 changes that a person will go through. And the second change that we go through are social. And what I mean by that is when you go into work every day for 30 years, you say hello to the same faces every day. And when you retire, some of those faces you're never going to see again. And that's a social change, okay? Too many people are smiling here. No, I'm kidding. But, my point is that is a social change. And you've got to recognize that fact. That'll have an impact on a person. And so you got to think about your network of people, who you're going to spend time with. We are social beings. And if there's anything that's illustrated, it's been COVID-19. So we got to think about who we're going to spend our time with. That's the reason I asked you that question. Okay, and the third change that we go through, I don't know how else to define it. Other than identity changes or spiritual changes. I mean, what I mean by that is when we retire, I want you to think about it. Your identity changes. I mean, if I ran into you in a party and we were talking socially and I said, tell me about yourself. You talk about your family, your hobbies. Third thing you talk about is what you do for a living. And when you retire, the third thing goes away. And you got to start asking yourself some questions like, what do I do with my time now? Who am I now? And has what I've done. You have to start to ask yourself some pretty big questions. Now, for you guys, just in the nature of your work, and some of you are retired military and those type of things, I mean, you can answer that question in a probably a more affirmative way than a lot of other people ask the question, has it all been worth it? Has what I've done made a difference? For you guys, probably not as much, but my point is you got to have an answer to that third part. Redefine it, because if you don't, it'll impact your health. Because some people struggle with it. I've had 2 family members that retired, and it was how they defined themselves. And when they retired, they didn't know who they were. And it was unfortunate. Now, it's funny, they're both doing better 20 years later, health-wise, than what they did when they first retired. Because they finally figured it out. It took them a few years. But it would have been better for them to figure it out beforehand. But they were like, they were so set on not, they had mandatory retirement and they were kind of pushed out and, they didn't have a choice. Neither one of them wanted to retire. But you got to start thinking about that. And so, so you can transition into it because it will change, okay? So just, have an idea of that. That's the reason I asked you about hobbies and activities and who you're going to hang out with, okay? So I'm off my soapbox. Think about those things. All right, now I'm going to take you through an admin checklist. Now, Janet is your retirement person here, a counselor here at the facility here. So she's going to chime in as we go along, and we're going to talk about the admin process that you're going to go through when you retire, okay? Now, what I have up here is the process. Janet will hit the protocol as we go along, okay? Chiming in back and forth. First thing I want to mention for you, Title 32, if you're Title 32, it says it in your handbook. It's your responsibility to know the rules and keep your records, okay? Especially your DD 214s, copies of your mobilization orders. Interact with Janet on that would be my recommendation. Janet, if you have anything you want to chime in on that, go ahead.
For the MOB orders for your mobilization, sometimes I know for Title 32 they don't offer DD 214s if it's 90 days or less.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Janet. Now, the question I often get is, now we're going to talk about you as a federal employee. Okay, you working for the government. When should your planning start? Yesterday. However, 5 years out, you got to start getting very specific with your decisions on retirement planning. Okay? First thing you need to ask yourself 5 years out, and this starts 5 years out, folks. That's when the timeline starts. And by the way, you can work off of our checklist here. I gave you a nice handy-dandy checklist. I'm about to cover everything on this checklist here, briefly. We're going to go into more detail in this class. First question you need to answer is, am I going to need life and health insurance in retirement, FEGLI and FEHB? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you determine that you need both or either one, you got to be enrolled 5 years. If you can't, if you haven't been, if you haven't been, you can't keep it. Unless, we'll talk about extenuating circumstances like Vera V-SIPs and things like that. But other than that, and there's rules on that, or there's a waiver. Typically, you got to be enrolled 5 years. So, got to answer that question 5 years out. Number two, 5 years out, you got to start taking a more careful look at your Social Security statement. Now, they email you saying your statement's ready 3 months before your birthday every year. Anybody not getting a statement every year or getting emailed that you're not getting a statement, because that means you didn't enroll online on the Social Security website, and you need to do that. Okay, everybody's getting their statement? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, just tell me the truth. I don't care. I'm not going to yell at you. You used to get it in the mail. That stopped in 2011. They stopped mailing. Now, did you know, interesting little fact, pending legislation right now, they're talking about sending them back out. It's in the Senate right now. You know, obviously nobody's following all this stuff, but they're talking about sending them back out. Right now, you got to go, they send you a link saying your statement's ready, you go into the link. Okay, now, if you're not getting a statement, I need you to go into ssa.gov/myaccount. You got to set up your portal so you can get your statement every year. Don't go into the main website, ssa.gov. Go /myaccount. It'll take you right into the portal. Because the home page, they switch around where my account is, where you switch it. So I can't even tell, it's like every week they're switching it around. So if you type that into the search engine, it'll come right up. But you got to, you know, they're going to ask you questions that you know. Name, address, Social Security number. You're going to set up a username, which is your email address. And you can request to be texted that your statement's ready and things like that. You set up a password. Password's good for 6 months. That's it. You got to change it every year. So remember your password because they got to change it. Okay? Now they're going to ask you questions on your credit history to make sure, because of identity theft, you are who you are. It's multiple choice. This is where people get screwed up, though. Don't guess at any answers. And you shouldn't be guessing anyway because you're writing these places a check. Okay, like if you bought a car like 3 years ago, they're going to ask you, you bought a car 3 years ago, or you know, there's some credit activity here 3 years ago. What happened? Like who did you buy, you know, who's the financier for the car? And it's multiple choice. If you're writing them a check, you're going to know who it is. God bless you. And you just point and click and you're good to go. If you refinance your house, they're going to ask you about that. Multiple choice, you're going to recognize. Usually the final two questions you're not going to recognize. And it's to protect you from identity theft. It'll say something that you don't know. And that's where people make mistakes. They guess. This looks like the closest thing. Boom, they don't think you're you. It shuts down the system. And now you're going to go through about a couple months to reopen up your portal. Okay? Got to prove you're you. Okay, so if you're like, I don't have a clue. I don't know what they're talking about. There's usually an answer, an option, does not apply. Go ahead, sir.
Because it asks you questions that don't even pertain to you.
Exactly.
You bought a truck. No, I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. And so you would say not applicable. The answer is like not applicable or this is not me or something along those lines. But if it's something that you clearly don't recognize. I've had people guess. Well, I didn't think it was that, but it was the closest thing I could think of. Well, they're thinking you're not you. Those are you. It's usually the final two questions, just so you know, okay? Also, I want you to review your Social Security statement. Okay, things to review. Middle of page 2, review your date of birth. Make sure it's accurate. You never know with identity theft, okay? Identity theft is in the world today, and you got to make sure nobody has stolen your identity. Somebody could be claiming income on your number. So check your date of birth out, make sure it's accurate. It'll affect your enrollment on Medicare Part B as in Bravo. Number 2, take a look at your earnings history. We're going to show you this afternoon how they actually come up with what they're going to pay you on Social Security benefits. Okay? The other thing is, well, he'll talk about it this afternoon. You guys need to probably contact Social Security anyway if you've been active duty between 1940 and 2001. You might not be getting credit for some of your Social Security benefits. So you should make an appointment with Social Security to make sure you're getting credit for some of that service. You might not be. It's not like a whole lot of money, but can be as much as $1,200 a year. I mean, that would be the max you'd be eligible for that you might not be getting credit for. What I'm being told is you should make an appointment with Social Security to make sure you're getting credit. You know, you bring in your DD-214, you know, and they should adjust it if there's an adjustment that should be made. Okay? That's just a quick aside. He'll talk about it in more, Patrick will talk about it in more detail this afternoon. Just be aware of that, okay? Take a look at your earnings history. Your earnings history is going to determine what you put in your pocket on Social Security benefits, so make sure it's right. Take a look at your most recent statement compared to your new statement. Go through the earnings history, make sure nothing's changed. You never know with identity theft. If it looks good and your current year looks good, get rid of the old, keep the new. You're good to go, okay? And make sure your projected benefits at 62, full retirement age, and age 70 are what they're supposed to be. Now listen, poor Patrick's going to break down your Social Security benefits this afternoon. We're going to challenge your thinking on it. We're going to challenge your thinking on how to take your Social Security benefits. Do you know why? There was a study that was just done by an income company and a university that and this is like after the fact stuff, but they found, you know, people who have died in this country, 96% of the time they took Social Security at the wrong time. They took it at the wrong. Now, it's easy to say because those people died. Now it's easy to say if they took it at the right or wrong time. So it's easy to say. But I want to talk about the criteria that you need to think about. You can't predict the future. But there's considerations that you need to take into account of when to draw at the right time. So we're going to tell you what you need to consider foremost in making the appropriate decision there without telling you what to do. Because most people draw at the wrong time. And do you know why they draw at the wrong time? Who did you learn about money from? Parents. And it's just instinctive, folks. And we're going to talk about that. Look, I'm not looking, but this is all about that's what he said. Money coming in, money going out. It's all about cash flow. Cash flow. So we're going to delve into that this afternoon. Okay? So make sure your projected benefits at 62, full retirement age, and age 70 are what they're supposed to be. Okay? Okay, what I would always tell people, and again, I don't want to volunteer Janet or worker fingers to the bone here, but if you can, two quick things, or Janet, you can even throw it out there now. Two questions I always say you want to get answered from your HR folks if you have somebody that you have access to locally that you can visit with face-to-face. First question I would want answered to make sure that I'm working with you in the right way would be, when do you want me to let you know I'm going to retire? Like I'm going to retire. How many months out? I mean, what would you say?
So typically we start working 2 years out.
Okay. 2 years out, and what would that entail? Like, when I'm going to retire, the day I'm going to retire, or you tell me, like, what's your protocol?
Retirement, then I need an intent to retire memo, and you can say, send me an email, I'll send you the intent to retire memo, you fill it out, you sign it, you send it back.
Okay.
If it's a voluntary, we normally know that we normally have an 860 report, so sometimes the involuntary will fall on the 860 report, so we'll start working those 2 years out, and I'll contact you and say, hey, you're getting ready to retire in the next 2 years. Here's the things that you need to consider, and then when it comes close to that, I'll send you more information.
Okay, intent to retire. Okay, now, second question. That was good. Okay, that's good to know. Second question I have for you. What's going to be your method of communication? Can they visit with you face-to-face, over the phone, Skype, Zoom? That would be the second thing I'd want to know. If you're my person, how are we going to communicate with each other?
Pre-COVID, they could come in and see us. Now it's telephone or email.
Okay, fair enough. Telephone and emails right now due to COVID-19, but I would want to know those two things so so I can work with Janet in the smoothest way possible, okay? Some places, yes, go right ahead.
We elaborate on why it's 2 years.
Go right ahead.
It's 2 years because it doesn't say this for another 2 years in your retirement application. It's not
That's a nice little, I'll tell you what, that is a nice little benefit too. We have, what? No, that is, yeah. Come with me. Now listen, no, we're gonna break this down. We have quite a few slides on you buying back time. You know, I made a statement at the beginning of this class that some of you are gonna walk out of here going, I'd be better off taking my money and putting it toward this part of my benefits package. It's kind of what she just said. The ROI on buying back time is better than putting money in your, might be so bold. It's usually better than, it's a better rate of return than putting it in your thrift. But I want to know as soon as I can, so that's the reason. That's the justification of them talking to you and starting this process 2 years out. It gets more expensive the longer you wait. Okay, but we're going to talk about buying back time this afternoon. The return on investment on buying back time is huge. Okay, so it's good because I'll tell you what, I've been at a lot of other places where people were clueless walking out the door about it. Absolutely clueless and didn't even know. And when they're in our class, it's kind of like, they're shocked. So really, really important. Last thing, I would tell you 5 years out, evaluate your need for long-term care insurance. You know, the voluntary long-term care program through the federal government, it's voluntary, you don't have to do it. But it gets kind of expensive. We're going to show you the pricing on it tomorrow, the longer you wait. Usually people, when they're getting older, get sticker shock going, not doing that as much as I'd like to. So the younger you do it, the cheaper that it is. So, you know, make that, what I was trying to tell you, the things that you don't want to think about, just make the decision whether you want to do it younger rather than later, when you're younger than instead of later, because it's cheaper. Okay, 5 years out. Listen, what Kathleen was saying in Jan, it doesn't really come down to what happened in your career. It comes down to what you can prove happened in your career. Okay, so listen, a couple things here. Verify your civilian service. Make sure your service comp date is accurate. Okay, it shows up on your leave and earnings statement, but sometimes that's not a reflection of when you started with the government. If you bought back time, there's some inconsistency there with that. Sometimes it's reflected on your leave and earnings statement. Sometimes it's not. What might be showing up on your leave and earnings statement might be for leave and earnings purposes, but not for retirement. So if it doesn't look right, like if you thought you bought back your time already, like let's say you've been proactive and you bought back your time, then check with these folks and just ask them, you know, go, look, what's my retirement service computation date? And get that date if it doesn't look right on that leave and earnings statement. But I would want clarification on that, okay? Also, they can chime in, but DD 214, make sure your final DD 214, particularly, but all of them, make sure they accurately reflect, you know, your service history, and because that could impact your retirement. We're going to talk about buying back time, okay? Also, for those of you who have bought back your time, your military time, make sure, and I'm sure these guys will double check and chime in, make sure you have your 1514 letter, OPM 1514 letter, it's your receipt you bought back your time, or your DG 66, Delta Golf 66, that comes from DFAS. Okay, either one they'll accept, but you need one of those two letters. The 1514 letter is more like a receipt. It's like, you know, this is the money you gave us and it reflects this time. The DG 66 is more in a letter format. Comes from DFAS, but they're just going, hey, this is you. This is just a certificate, you know, like a notification that you gave us X amount of money that reflects this time. The other one's more of an itemized receipt. Yes, go ahead.
Just so you guys are aware, the DG 66, it is not automatic. So when you're done paying on a military deposit, you have to email me. Say, hey, can you please request a pay in full letter?
So you'll do that for them?
Yes.
Okay, chime in. Yeah, you got to chime in because I don't want to volunteer you for anything, but.
That pay in full letter is going to go to your home of record. You need to put that in a safe place, but we also need a copy because at the time of retirement, what ABCC does is even though we send them a retirement estimate, they're going to go into your EOPM and try to find that paid in full letter to ensure that everything that I send them is correct.
Yeah, that letter's really important too. OPM's going to want a copy of that.
I actually have one that I just paid off on the second one. I didn't receive the one that was starting to deal with the other.
Yeah, just shoot me an email and I'll request one for you.
Okay, so they're going to want copies of that, just so you know. They're going to want that documentation. Okay, even if it shows up on a leave and earning statement, OPM could care less. Okay, they're going to want a copy of that letter, and it's good that she will follow up. A lot of agencies you got to do it yourself. I had, you know, and again, you guys are pretty, DOD, you'll get your letter relatively quick. I've had some agencies that it took the person about a year to get their, you know, one of those 2 letters. So it can take a while, so that, you know, it's good that you have somebody that'll follow that up for you. Okay, we're going to talk about buying back time. You know, Kathleen and Janet already brought it up about buying back time. Listen, we're going to talk about the benefits of buying back time. And if you determine that it makes sense for you to buy back the time that you have, and it probably will, you'd have to have one heck of an excuse not to buy it back. You got to fill out a 3108. Janet, you want to chime in on that, the 3108, because we were talking about that on break, what you do there, anything about buying back the time?
So for the military project, we'll normally do it from start to finish for you. So if you have a period of that you want to buy back, and you want to have it, but return to duty, and you want to buy that time back, again, all you have to do is say, hey, I'd like to buy this time back. You send your DD 214. I'll request the estimated earnings. I'll send that forward. Send you, once I have the earnings back, which takes about 8 weeks, I'll do a MSU worksheet for you. I'll send that to you. I'll submit the 3108 directly to DFAS, and then it'll start showing up on your LES sometime about 8 weeks from the time I submit the application. So we normally do everything from start to finish. Not saying that you can't, but 9 times out of 10, if it's an absent U.S. return to duty, then 9 times out of 10, when you submit it, it's incorrect. So the process, even though it's longer for me to do it, it's normally correct.
Well, and let me just add on to that. I'm Colonel Lunch, the Human Resources Officer. She's underselling herself. So there's, just so you guys know the entire process, it's actually out in your employee toolkit on PPO, GPO. So look for that military buyback process. It's all spelled out there. And she says it takes her longer, but here, it's actually shorter in the long run. You have to go slow to go fast. So by having her do it, and getting the exact return to duty, not necessarily when your orders ended, but the exact return to duty, because you don't have to return to duty right after you come back from the orders. You, by having her do that the first time around, it's a little bit longer process, but when it comes to your retirement time, it's actually shorter because you don't have to have corrections made. So you have a little longer initially, but when it comes to the time where you want to pop smoke and get out of here, your records are completely accurate. So please, I would definitely encourage you to work with Janet instead of going to do that correctly. But you do have that option, and it is spelled out for you in a flowchart form on your employee toolkit on GPO over here. Guys, PPO over there on you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot simpler for you guys to do it here. You got the, you know, you got resources here to buy back that time. So that's the protocol. And do it sooner rather than later if you're going to do it. Okay, why? Because they're charging you interest on what you owe, number one. Number two, the sooner you do it, the more time you have to buy it back. It doesn't kill your cash flow. Okay? So we're gonna get into more detail on that this afternoon. Okay? Or also, part-time service, okay? Again, I don't know whether anybody has part-time service here. That'll affect the calculation of your benefits. So 5 years out, I would want to know the impact of it. It gets prorated. You get full credit for your eligibility. It's just, it affects your calculation. No part-time? Okay, I didn't think so. I just figured I'd throw it out there. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay, TSP, start projecting it out 5 years out. TSP.gov, you can start looking at what it'll, listen, it's not going to be the exact number what you're going to need. You can start getting a good idea of what it's going to look like if you're reasonable in your estimates, because that's going to determine the type of income you can take out of it. Does it make sense to contribute to the Roth option of your thrift? It may or may not. But I can tell you right now, if you haven't done that, there's some compelling reasons why you need to consider it, and I'm going to talk about it. If you haven't looked at the Roth option of your TSP, there's some powerful reasons to start thinking about it. And I'm going to talk about it in more detail here in a few minutes. Estate planning. What does that have to do with your benefits? Beneficiary designations. Okay, you listed 4. Who gets your last paycheck and annual leave, any unpaid wages that weren't, that's reflected on your SF 1152. These are in your EOPF. You chose a beneficiary on your pension death benefit, the deposits you're making in. You get a lump sum death benefit. We're going to talk about that this afternoon. It's your high 3 plus $34,541.99. It's a lump sum. You listed a beneficiary there on your SF3102. Okay, you also chose a beneficiary on your FEGLI, which is your SF2823 form, and you elected a beneficiary on your thrift, TSP3. These are listed in your EOPF. When did you choose these people? When you started working here. That's the point. People get married, people get divorced, people get remarried, people have kids, people get mad at their kids. These things happen. Make sure your beneficiary designations accurately reflect who should get your money. Listen, I would challenge you. I bet you there's somebody walking around here on this base that was married, got divorced, got remarried, and died in service, and it went to the ex. I'm willing to bet that happened to somebody here. It happens every place I go. Guess who gets the money in that scenario? The ex. OPM does not recognize wills. OPM could care less what your will says. They're going off these forms. Make sure they accurately reflect who should get your money. I had one happen like that at Toby Hanna. You know, a person was married a couple years, got divorced, and then married the same wonderful person for 25 years. Forgot to change his beneficiary. He was married to somebody on the base. She went to claim his benefits, found out, he forgot to change it. And she tried to fight it and said, I have a will. And they said, we don't care. She sued and she lost. Payer-beneficiary relationship supersedes your will. They could care less what your will says. It goes off those beneficiary designation forms. Make sure your beneficiary designations accurately reflect who should get your money. Okay, I'm not saying change anything. Review them every 3 to 5 years, though. Review your will and review your beneficiary designations every 3 to 5 years. Okay, you'll be shocked at how a life will change. Okay, you never know when you throw money on the table. It's control from the grave. Okay, 1 to 2 years out. Let's fast forward. Listen, my recommendation. I always tell people this, and CSRS people always whine to me about this. You guys don't usually, but I would print out my 50s. I would print them out and put them in a folder with the hope I'm never going to have to pull them out and use them. The reason why is, again, coming off the principle, it doesn't come down to what happened to your career. It comes down to what you can prove happened in your career. Those 50s are your chronological biography of your years of service with the federal government. Any change that occurs in your benefits, your employment status is reflected on a 50. And I would get them printed out. And the reason why I say this is how safe are your records? How many breaches have you had in your personnel records? You've had a lot. I mean, I can think of 3 right off the top of my head. So what I'm trying to tell you is I would print them out because if a 50 ever disappears reflecting your work history, according to them, you weren't working. It's your responsibility to recreate your work history. Did you know that? Like if everything like shuts down, they hack in and 50s disappear all over the place, they're going to go, where are your 50s? That's the protocol. That's your responsibility to recreate. It says it in your employee handbook. So I would print out my 50s. I'm not saying all your 50s are going to disappear, but I wouldn't want to take the risk. I would print them out. Print them out, put them in a folder. That's all. Okay? Now, I would try to, like a year out, so you're not surprised when you retire and you have the benefit of having Janet here. I would a year out, again, she's not here. I feel bad volunteering her, but so far she's volunteering for a lot, so I might as well volunteer her again. But if you can, have a conversation, review your EOPF with her. Here's the reason why. What I want you to do, you want to really start getting a documented idea of what money they're going to be paying you in retirement. So this is what I want you to do. Review your insurance coverages, okay? And what I mean by that is she's not going to give you advice on what you should be enrolled in, but make sure your enrollment history's in there on especially your health insurance. Okay, the number one reason why applications get kicked back from OPM and there's a delay of the processing of the retirement application is the enrollment history on health care. That's reflected on your SF2809. Make sure it's in there because sometimes, like, if you switch inside those 5 years from one carrier to another, it might just show, like if you switch from Blue Cross Blue Shield to Aetna, it might show Aetna but not Blue Cross Blue Shield, even though you were in there. And it takes a while, so make sure your enrollment history is in there, especially if you've switched carriers. Okay, sometimes there's a lack of consistency on that. Confirm that they have the right age for you. You have a birth certificate with a raised seal, marriage certificate. You just want to make sure there's going to be no mistakes made about a year out. So make sure your birthday is accurate and your service comp date is accurate and you're getting credit for the military time you bought back. Okay, you want to reconfirm that about a year out. Review your promotions, your steps, and your pay increases. And that's important because that's going to be how they arrive at your high 3. We're going to talk about how they calculate your pension benefit this afternoon. And it's going to be how they arrive at the number. So you don't want to be surprised. You want to get a good working idea what's going to be coming out. And again, just reconfirm if you bought back your credit, your military time, all your creditable services in there. Get to a pre-retirement seminar. I know that sounds self-promotional. But you know what? This is what I'm trying to tell you. You want to know, 1 year out, it's always good to get to a program such as this, just for the simple fact that changes occur in your benefits every year. And you want to know, you want to make sure you know of the most recent changes so you can plan appropriately. So, I'm telling you right now, COVID-19, they passed the CARES Act. That had an impact on your thrift as far as accessing your money, and it had an impact on your health care. And we're going to talk about the changes on the flexible spending accounts and things like that. It affected it. And so we're going to talk about what we'll talk about all of it. But my point is, I would want to know about those changes so I can plan appropriately. And when you start getting your annuity estimates done, you got plenty of options to get these estimates done. Make sure you're focusing in on the net number, not the gross. A lot of people go, okay, 1% of my high 3 is X amount of money. That's your gross. You got to take a look at your net number. Okay? Okay, review your survivor benefits. Listen, okay, continuing 1 year out, I always tell people you really need to think about the survivor benefit you want to leave behind. Number one, it's a pretty costly decision. I mean, the cost of leaving something is pretty expensive. You want to think it through. Like I said before, don't arrive at the decision lightly. But it could also impact your spouse for a long time. So just don't be cachet with it. Think about it. Start about a year out. Now, some of the things you need to think about in leaving the appropriate survivor benefit. One, does your spouse have a defined benefit where they're working? What's the balance in their 401k program or if they're a federal employee TSP or IRA? You need to think about that. How much do you have in your thrift? That's a consideration too. You'd be leaving that behind. How much life insurance do you have on yourself? Whether it's FEGLI or on your own, how much life insurance do you have? Now, listen, this might not be as important to you. It might be real important to you. Okay, depending on who you are. I don't care if you're married to Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey or whoever. If your spouse needs health care under FEHB, you got to leave a survivor benefit. You got to leave if they need your FEHB coverage, you got to leave a survivor benefit. If you do not leave a survivor benefit, the day you die, they get kicked out of your health care plan. Write that down. You need to remember it if they need health care. Okay, I'm talking about a non-federal employee spouse. The day you die, they get kicked out of your health care plan if you do not leave a survivor benefit. We're going to mention it this afternoon, and I'm going to mention it again tomorrow morning. Why? Because most retirement planners don't know that fact, and if they do an inventory of your assets and your spouse has more money than you do, what do you think advice you're going to get? Leave them nothing. They don't need the money. They got more than you do. That's terrible advice, but they're not going to know because you just cut them out of your health care when you die. So you've got to remember that. You've got to leave a survivor benefit if they need your health care, okay? Also, there's survivor benefits for your kids. It's tied in with Social Security. If they're under age 18, if they're disabled, it would go to age 22. It's basically tied into Social Security. FERS will make sure for your minors that they will get, if you're the sole survivor in your, between you and your spouse, if you don't have, your spouse isn't alive and you die, I think this year it's $639 a month each, up to 3 kids would receive. Between Social Security and your FERS survivor benefit. Social Security usually pays out the whole thing. If your spouse is alive, I think it's $519 a month. Okay? Now, hey, Janet, is this in the retirement packet or did they get it separately, the W-4P form? Question for you. So you do it during the process. They fill out a new you have them fill out a new W-4P form. Okay, listen, that's important. The W-4P form is important. That's you're making a withholding election for not only your pension, but your annual leave payout. Okay, listen, if that doesn't get filled out, guess what? There's a default on it. Okay, the default is being married with 3 dependents. That means they're not withholding anything. And then guess what? You're settling up at tax return time. All right, so, make sure Janet will be working with you on that, but make sure that whatever you choose on the W-4P is an accurate reflection, married, whatever, that you're claiming the right amount, okay, as best as possible. Start getting specific with the day you want to go out and retire. There's a best day of the month to retire. There's a better day of the month to retire, and there's a best day of the year to retire. We'll talk about all of that this afternoon. Okay, it has to, for you guys it's pretty simple, I'm sure you know. Okay, it's typically the last day of the month at the end of a pay period. Best day would be the last day of the year. He'll talk about why this afternoon. Okay? So you want to get specific with the day about a year out. Start talking to Janet about what you're planning on the day, just so you're organized with this. Okay, now 6 months out, let's fast forward. If you have any outstanding debts or loans that you owe to the government, start getting them paid back. Most common debt we see are TSP loans. Get them paid back. Here's the reason why. If you have a loan outstanding when you retire, it's treated as a distribution. So what does that mean? You got to pay tax on it now. Okay, so whatever loan you have outstanding, you owe tax on it. Okay, so the point of it is get it paid back because you want to avoid the tax liability. Now the CARES Act extended it. It's not as bad as it used to be, but this will probably go away. You can pay the tax over a 3-year period of time right now, and that's just due to the CARES Act. Okay, but you still got to pay the tax. If you took out the loan before the age of 55, there's an additional 10% early withdrawal penalty on top of it. So if you have a loan outstanding, get it paid back. That would be my advice to you so you can avoid that tax liability because you're going to get whacked with that right when you're retiring. Your income's going to be going down, and then all of a sudden you got a big tax bill. Try to avoid that. Okay, just a quick show of hands, just so I know my audience here. How many people are enrolled in the Flexible Spending Account program? Very few, just 2. Okay, that's it. All right, I'm going to talk about, listen, I don't know how close you guys look relatively young, but you look very young, sorry. Listen, if you're close to going out and retiring, though, you need to start planning out your FSA expenses because if you time it right and you plan out your expenses right, you can put free money in your pocket. We're going to talk about that. There's a best day of the year to retire for your pension benefit. There's a best day of the year to retire for your health care benefit. They're 2 separate things. And I'll talk about my side of that tomorrow morning. But if you plan it right, and I'll break that down for you in more detail tomorrow. Okay? Okay, for those of you planning to, well, I don't even know whether you can, but let's say you go back to work and you keep working. If you work past age 65, here's the bottom line, unless you're TRICARE for life. You don't have to enroll in Part B until you retire if you work past age 65. So the bottom line is this. You need to get a statement of earnings proving you were still working past age 65. So if you work past age 65 and you're covered under a health care plan, you don't need to enroll in Medicare Part B as in Bravo until you retire. But you need to get a statement of earnings proving you were still working. Otherwise, you pay penalties on that Part B premium. That's like your ticket to avoid the penalties. You get that from the National Personnel Record Center. It's in St. Louis, Missouri. I would think Janet will probably give you help and resources on that if that even came to that here. I don't think anybody's working past age 65. Okay. 2 months. Okay, now Janet is going to be probably talking to you through this whole thing. But 2 months out, it could be, there's going to be a point where does the rubber meet the road, Janet, where the application starts getting filled out and you start calculating out their pension benefit? When do you start that process of that interaction where you're giving them the forms and they're filling out the 6 months. So cross out 2 months and write in 6 months because it varies. I mean, I've had 2, I've had 4, I've had a year. I mean, I've had all types of things. This varies. But this is the point of contact where I'm starting to do my paperwork and she's going to start calculating out my pension benefit. Okay? So 6 months out. Now, this is what's going to happen. Janet's going to go to work and she's going to open up your EOPF. She's going to calculate out your pension benefit. It's going to be based on, we're going to cover all of it this afternoon, creditable service, including any military time you bought back, your high 3, and the day you're going to start your annuity. Are you eligible for immediate retirement and all of that? Those factors she takes into account, she calculates this information out. Now, while she's doing that, you send a link out or do you give them physical paperwork? Good. Okay, even better. Perfect. Okay, so she's going to give you a retirement package, an SF3107 package. Okay, now, listen, this is not just your name and address and where to send the money to. You got decisions to make. These decisions will be covered throughout this program. But they're going to ask you what you want to do with your benefits. First thing that they're going to ask you is, what do you want to do with your life insurance? We will cover that first thing tomorrow morning. Those decisions will be reflected on your 2818 form, SF 2818 form. You will be making decisions on what you want to do with your FEGLI. We will break down the options tomorrow. Okay? Number 2, what are your plans for your health care? They're going to ask you questions. Your enrollment history will be in there. They're going to want information on your TRICARE also, your TRICARE coverage. Why would they want to know about your TRICARE enrollment on your 2809 for civilian service? Why would they want to know that? You have a financial pivot play. It's a big one. You have a big financial pivot play off of TRICARE. As a matter of fact, this pivot play often opens up like a number of different pivot plays for you guys. And I'll break that down in more detail. But they want to know about it on your 2809. We'll talk about that pivot play tomorrow. But you're going to make your elections there. Survivor benefit. You will elect what you want to leave behind if you were to pass on to your spouse. You got 3 options. Leave them nothing, 50% or 25%. We will break down the cost of that tomorrow. You will elect that on your 3107 form. Section D is in Delta. Listen, now what are they doing with COVID? Do they want a wet signature on the notary and all that? Are they still requiring that? I know on withdrawals on the thrift, they're waiving that. It's electronic. Are they doing?
Yeah, everything, all these forms are wet signatures. So,
wet signatures.
Yeah.
Notary if they're less than 50% still, right?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Listen, number 2 reason why applications get kicked back from OPM is that the person, if you leave less than 50% survivor benefit, the spouse has to sign off on the fact that they know you're not leaving full survivor benefits, and it's got to be notarized. That's a number 2 reason applications get kicked back from OPM. The spouse either didn't sign it or it wasn't notarized. You have to prove to them you told them. Okay, there has to be proof, and that's their proof. Also, guess what OPM wants in this package? Your 1514 letter, or DG66. They're going to want the copy of that. It doesn't say leave an earnings statement. It says OPM 1514 or DG66, okay? Okay, on your direct deposit, you autofill it, I'm assuming, because you got their bank account information. Bank account, direct deposit, they autofill it because you've got direct deposit on your pay right now, so they autofill it in your retirement package. This is what I'm trying to tell you. If you're moving, like you said you might move south, well, maybe he would change banks. You got to fill out a new form if you do it beforehand. It's an 1199A form. If you move in retirement, it's an RI 38-128 form. So like let's say he moves to Florida or something, or Tennessee has no state income tax. Florida doesn't either. West Virginia. Get out of town. Okay. There you go. Be careful of TRICARE there. I got pivot plate. That's good to know. A lot of people in West Virginia don't like TRICARE. I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, well, they tell me why. But anyway, he would fill out an RI 38-128 form. Make a copy of everything you fill out. Make a physical copy. And it's not for the fact that anybody's going to screw up in the processing of your retirement. That's not the reason why. Make copies of everything. You're going to see why tomorrow. It's very important to do that. And tell your family members where you put your stuff. Make copies of everything and tell your family members where you put it. Why? What happens when you die? It would be good for them to know. Okay? Okay, here are some common mistakes that delay the processing. I'm not going to spend any time on it. I spend more time on this when you are kind of like a lone soldier out there trying to navigate this stuff on your own. I don't think it's as big of an issue with Janet here. Kathleen, you know, the folks here. But here are the common mistakes, and these are just pitfalls. And I'm sure this gets reviewed anyway. Yeah, so, again, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Here's what's going to happen, and chime in on this, okay? What's going to happen when you finish filling out this paperwork and Janet finishes this calculation of your pension benefit, you guys will recommunicate with each other, okay? And the purposes of which she's got to review the paperwork with you to make sure it's in good order. Like, she's not going to counsel you and go, wait, you're really screwing up. You got to change your survivor benefit. She's not going to do that. She's just going to make sure you answered every question and that the paperwork is in good working order. There's no counseling that goes on, but she's got to make sure you answered every question in the right way. Now, at the same time, she's going to come with you with the calculation of what she calculated to be your pension benefit. And this calculation will be an inventory of all of your creditable service along with your steps, your pay increases, and how she arrived at your high 3, because that's going to determine your pension. So you have to review all of this. Okay, now she says your paperwork's in good order, you're good to go. Now, you're going to review what she calculated. And if based on your recollection, it looks good, which it will, 999 times out of 1,000, it's in perfect working order, and you're good to go. You sign off. She's going to have you sign off on the statement of summary of service. It's a 3701-1. You're basically saying you agree. Now, if you disagree, you sign off you disagree. Like, let's say they missed your military time. You bought something back from way long, and you think you bought it back, and they don't have it. You'd sign off saying you disagree, ultimately. And that's like a red flag to OPM. They've got to find out who's right and who's wrong. If they archive the 1514 letter, you would win that argument. If they can't archive it, like it's nowhere to be found, and you don't have it, and nobody has it, you would lose that argument. Comes down to what you can prove. That's the reason it's important to have that documentation, and you want to be proactive in getting this documentation as soon as possible. Work through Janet on that, okay? Typically, people sign off saying, this looks good, we're good to go, okay? And it gets sent up. Now, once this happens, this will ultimately make its way up to OPM, but it'll go to ABC, well, the ABC Center beforehand. We'll chime in on that too. Certification for your FEGLI enrollment will be certified at that point. They transfer your health care enrollment to OPM. OPM is now responsible for your health care now. HR is no longer responsible for it. OPM is. Beneficiary designations are forwarded up off your EOPF. And there's a portion that they need to complete on your application, which they will. It makes its way over to payroll. Okay, now this will go to ABC, but payroll ultimately will ultimately go through payroll. And here's the reason why. They got to issue your final check, along with any unused leave, your annual leave. So there'll be any unused. So that last check could be a very big check. Are they paying that all out? This varies by agency. They putting that check on that last paycheck here? Good, okay. Because some places I've had, they start yelling at me going, I'm not getting that check on, they don't get that here, it's separate. Okay, so you get a nice big check on your last check. Any unused annual leave, plus that last pay period. So it's usually a big check. And please remember, that is seed money. You might want to think about timing your retirement on the last day of the year to max out your annual leave. And we'll talk about why here in a little bit. Now, once that's issued, they close out your individual retirement record, and that's your official record of your current service, the pay rate in which you went out at, the pay rates in which you went out at, unused sick leave that's accumulated, because that's going to impact your defined benefit, your FERS annuity. But this is closed up once that check has been issued. Now, the pay rate in which you went out at is going to determine your FEGLI coverage in retirement. We'll talk about that in more detail. So they got to certify it because that's going to determine your life insurance in retirement. This application ultimately goes up to Boyers, Pennsylvania, but before it goes there, it will go to ABC in Fort Riley, Kansas. Okay? It'll go through there. Now listen, you're going to be notified in writing when they release it, or they should be. You should be getting a notification, we've released it. This is a very important piece of information that you're going to need. In this letter, there'll be 3 pieces of information you need to have. Number 1, the register number on the form. Everybody has their own unique ID number on their application. So that letter will certify that. Number 2, the transmittal date in which it went out on, that it was transmitted out. And number 3, the payroll office number it came out of. Because let's say that all of a sudden it goes through ABC, but it doesn't make it, all of a sudden it just falls off a cliff and you don't hear another word. That means it got lost somewhere. Like if you don't hear from OPM at all, that means somebody lost it. And if you start checking in, if you contact OPM or contact Janet, there's 3 pieces of information OPM wants to know to find your application. Those 3 pieces of information, the register number, the transmittal date, and the payroll office number it came out of. They've got to go find your application. They've got to find out where it got lost. So that letter is important. Okay, now here's what's going to happen. Janet, tell the group what you told me. There's a period where you can't see what's going on, and that happens when it comes out of ABC, correct? Or when it goes to ABC? There's kind of a period where you're blind, you can't see what's going on. Am I right?
Yeah, actually, once it leaves my office, I lose all visibility on your retirement time.
Yeah, so you got to stay on top of this stuff at that point once it comes out of her office, because she's kind of blind to what's going on at that point. So these letters and this documentation is kind of important. Now, give it a few weeks, give it a couple weeks, but you'll get an acknowledgement letter from OPM when it gets there after ABC. You'll get an acknowledgement letter, very important letter, basically saying this is their record that they received your application. We received it. Very important letter. There'll be a card attached to it that you need to detach. It's your ID, your retirement ID card. You have a retirement claim number. It starts out CSA with a number on it. Okay? Memorize the number, because that's how OPM is going to identify you for the rest of your life. If you call in with any questions to OPM, they want that number. You start giving them, like, Chris Lenz, where's the rest of my money? You owe me some money. They're not going to tell you a thing. They're not supposed to. You got to give them the CSA number. Okay? You get a card, it's attached to it. Also, really important now due to COVID-19, a lot of stuff has to be done online. They're going to give you information for services online. That's the portal to do any admin work. They're going to give you a temporary password, because they're going to give you your CSA number, like your ID number, and then they give you a temporary password. You got to go in there. You got to go into services online within 30 days, type in the temp password, and then you got to set a new password for yourself. Pick some, obviously like anything else. Pick a new password. You got to set your own password. I'm telling you, want to do that, because then after 30 days you get closed out, and you will be using this, especially depending on how long COVID-19 lasts, especially you'll be using this. I got a couple slides on it. Okay? Now, read the letter that they send you. It's not just this card with the ID number on it. They're going to say, hey, this is what Janet calculated for you. And by the way, the letter's going to say to you, this is what was calculated, but don't hold us accountable to it. We've got to adjudicate this. We've got to archive your work history, and we're going to verify everything in here. But we're going to pay you based on it right now. They're going to reconfirm in this letter the survivor benefit you elected to make sure there was no mix-up. And they're going to send you a TSP withdrawal package. Now, listen, a lot of people go, what, I have to take my money? No, you don't. But by law, they're legally obligated to let you know what your options are with the money. By law, they got to. You can do one of three things. You can take it out and spend it. Not that I'm recommending it, but they're going to show you how to do that. Number two, you can roll it over to your own personal IRA account. They're going to show you how to do that there. It's your right. It's your money. Third thing is you can leave it right where it's at. It's up to you. They'll give you all the different income options you have available. They're going to talk about required minimum distribution at age 72 now, not 70 and a half anymore. Secure Act changed that. Age 72. They'll talk about required minimum distribution at that age, how it gets calculated, how they'll interact with you. By law, they have to do this. It's your money. They got to tell you how they're going to interact with you. You can keep it, leave it there, spend it, whatever. But they're going to show you in this package. Okay? Now, how long does it take OPM to adjudicate an application to process it? 2 to 9 months, depending on how complicated your work history is. It can be as quick as 60 days, as long as 9 months. Now, listen, this is the thing I want to just point out why you might want to, we're going to talk about retiring on the last day of the year. Your interim pay is not what Janet's going to calculate for you. It's going to be 60 to 80%. I don't know, maybe you have an idea what they're ballparking for you, but typically they cut your pay because they're floating you your life and health insurance. Like if you have life and health insurance they're covering you for, they're not charging you for it. They're just covering you, so they just kind of arbitrarily cut your pay. So your interim pay status for 2 to 9 months will probably be less than what was, I can guarantee it'll be less than what they calculated. Now, once it's been adjudicated, you get that money back. My point is, though, you're taking a pay cut for 2 to 9 months. You might want to maximize that annual leave to carry you through that cash flow cut until you're good. Just an idea, but that's what's going to happen. You have anything to say on that, Janet? Anything you want to add in? Don't feel like you have to. I just want to make sure we're good. Anything you want to add? Okay, we're good? Okay. Okay, services online. I got two slides on this. Listen, this is the portal. I am telling you right now, you want to familiarize yourself with it, especially due to COVID-19 if you're getting ready to retire. But I think they're going to probably, lot of federal employees, it's been my experience, get frustrated with being able to talk to somebody at OPM. I hear it all the time, like I can't talk to anybody. They're going to try to encourage people to use this portal more and more, especially due to COVID-19. It's the opportunity to take advantage of it. This is where, I got the website up here, servicesonline.opm.gov, okay? If you want to review your monthly pension statements, which I would recommend the first 6 months of retirement. By the way, in your handouts, I gave you the coding list for withholdings on your pension statement. The first 6 months of the year, first 6 months of retirement, I would review. They don't tell you what they're withholding. They just give you a numerical code. Here's the coding list. Make sure they're taking something out they shouldn't be taking out, is the point. You just review. I mean, again, it's usually right, but that's not going to comfort you if there is a mistake. You get an annual summary of what you made during the year out of your pension. You can always verify your life insurance enrollment there and change. You can also, we'll talk about how you can change your life insurance enrollment in retirement, but you can do it there. 1099-R form for tax, when you do your tax returns. Let's say you don't get one in the mail or you lose it, you can go into Services Online and get a 1099-R form, okay, for your when you do your taxes every year. You can always change your tax withholdings there. Like if he moves to West Virginia, he can change his withholding, not only at the federal level, but the state level. You can do that online here. Interim pay, and this is the other thing. Interim pay status. People start getting antsy. Where are you at with the adjudication process here? I've been waiting a long time. You can go online and you can check the status of your interim pay status. Okay, if you lose that retirement card I talked about, you can get a new one through Services Online here. Okay? And if you want to change your direct deposit, change banks, RI 38-128, you can do that here too. Okay, again, allotments, you want to change or add something, you can do it here. Also, you're going to get an annuity booklet. They're going to send you a nice, impressive booklet when they've adjudicated your retirement. Let's say you lose that, you can get a new one up here through this portal. All right? And the other things, profile, contact information, mail address, can all be done through here. Now, this is what's going to happen, folks. Upon adjudication of your application, you will get a very impressive, they call it a booklet. It's like a very impressive pamphlet. It is kind of like a booklet. It'll have your name on it. It's your retirement booklet. It's a very impressive, booklet that, a lot of people don't get, and you do. And it basically is going to show you what your adjudicated pension benefit is going to be. They're going to say, based on everything we can prove, this is the actual check we're going to pay you. Do not be surprised if it's a few dollars different than what was calculated at the HR level. I mean, I'm not talking like $500 a month. I'm talking like, a few bucks a month. Okay, it could be like $5 a month to your benefit or to your detriment. I mean, there might be a month you're not getting credit for that you should have because you accumulated another day of sick leave that got you another month. Could be a lot of things. But it'll be a few dollars different, not a lot. Okay? They're going to give you more information on Services Online. They're going to tell you, here's your first statement, here's everything we're withholding, here's your gross income, here's your net income, here's everything we're taking out of your check. And then they're going to give you information on Services Online again. You want to keep checking this? Go in that portal. Also, guess what you get on that first check once it's been adjudicated? Any unpaid money they should have been paying you that they weren't. So they're going to add everything up they were paying you, take out everything that, life and health insurance premiums, and you get a nice little check on that first one. Okay? Now, your supplement, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, the supplement program starts then. That's when the supplement starts. Okay? Supplement starts then. We're going to talk about the supplement program this afternoon. Okay? Okay, and you can always call OPM. Right now, due to COVID-19, they're really not picking up at this number. Well, I don't know. I didn't stay on forever. But they're not really picking up too quick. Let me put it to you that way. Kind of the call, we called a couple times, calls are dropping. They're trying to encourage you to go online. But if you have questions on the processing of your retirement, you can try giving them a call. We have a couple more numbers at OPM that we're going to give you later on, but that's a general information line. Can you change your mind? OPM has rules on changing your mind. They'll have a different opinion here. But OPM rules are you can pull your application up until the time of adjudication. Now, they're going to have a different opinion of that here. Okay? They probably will say, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but they're going to probably tell you, no, we filled your spot, whatever, but they're going to probably tell you that. OPM will allow you to pull your application up until the time it's adjudicated. Now, they were paying you during that time. You got to pay that money back. But you could pull it up until the day of adjudication. Now, also, the other thing I want to pull out, do you guys, how often do you get Vera Visa? Do you have that coming through? Probably not. Early outs? Okay. Where they buy you out? Yeah, okay. All right, well, if all of a sudden you retire and then they offer a buyout, you can't pull your application for that reason to get the buyout. They're not allowed to do that. They won't allow you to do that. A lot of people ask me, can I change my survivor benefit? Yeah, you can. You can change your survivor benefit 30 days. The start of it is 30 days from the day it's adjudicated. They give you 18 months to change your survivor benefit option. Here's the thing. If you're electing a survivor benefit where you weren't, you got to make up for all the back payments you should have been making during that time. Windows closed after 18 months. That's the rules, okay? But you got to pay them with interest if you elect one where you didn't. You can always cut it out if you want. You don't get that money back, though. Okay, can you contest what was calculated at the OPM level? God bless you, whoever sneezed there. Can you contest it? Let's say it's way wrong in your mind. It's off by $200 a month, and you're like, this is too big of a mistake. You have the right to contest what they calculated at the OPM level. You got 30 days to do it, though. Okay, 30 days to contest it. All right? So those are your rights. Those are the rules. Good so far? Main thing is you got a good resource with the folks here, and they're very knowledgeable, too, so take advantage of them. Okay, I'm going to finish up with this. How are we doing on time here? Yeesh. Okay, I got to go through this relatively quick. Listen, you got a picture of this. You got a picture on the right side of your handouts. This is really important. I'm going to go through this quick. I need you to pull out this picture of a house. Everybody pull this out. I'm finishing with this. Listen, when we break down your benefits, we're going to be referring to this picture a lot. A lot. It is a nice house, isn't it? Now let me explain why we have this house in here. Listen, I'll tell you the problem with retirement planning. The financial media will tell you we're in a retirement planning crisis. Quite frankly, in my opinion, they're the ones to blame for it. They've commoditized everything. I mean, there's too many people that get on TV or the radio, or like they'll have a federal benefits radio show, and they'll go, you know what, you should be doing this. This is good, and this is bad. And then the next guy he's looking at is going, well, that's good, and this is bad. And he's like, who's right? And a lot of it's based on their experiences of dealing with that and dealing with this. So he's walking away going, well, who's right? Like, which one's right? And he ends up then doing nothing. And see, what nobody ever talks to you about is that there is a process to build a financially secure future. Nobody ever talks about it because sometimes it doesn't fit the agenda in which they're talking about, and it doesn't fit into what they know. And there is an overall planning process. And if you embrace this process, you will make the right decision when you're supposed to. And the reason why we use a picture of a house is for this very specific reason. If there's anything that encapsulates a process, if you've ever built a house, you know there's a process. I mean, right? I mean, if you hired a builder to build a house, even if you never built your own house, if you hired a builder, when you hired your builder, he didn't say, thanks for the business, I'm going to start on the roof tomorrow. He didn't say that. He said, we're going to break ground. We're going to break ground, dig a hole in the ground. And digging a hole in the, and these are the first, and financial, so in your financial home, breaking ground is the first thing you have to do. Now, two things have to be done. The first two things a person has to do financially in building their financial home and breaking ground is having an emergency fund and having a will, and your beneficiary designations. Now, listen, first thing is an emergency fund before I do anything. Now, my hope and prayer is you all already have an emergency fund. But this is not money you invest, folks. This is local bank, local credit union for accessibility, emergencies, and opportunities. Why is that so important? Because the water heater can blow up, the car can break down, and the kids can hit you up for money. I mean, think about your lives to this point in time. Is anybody sitting in this room that's never had an emergency? We know they're going to happen. We don't know how or when they're going to happen. If you don't have money set aside to pay for these emergencies, where are you going now? You're going to a credit card. And now you're paying $1.20 for something somebody's willing to accept $1 for. And my question to you is, are you making your problem better or worse? And let me explain the extent of this. This is the number one reason why people cannot retire when they want to. Number one reason, because you're hurting yourself in two ways. The first way you know about, the second way you don't, and that's how you can't retire. First way is you're financing bad debt. See, the problem is there's good debt and there's bad debt. What's good debt? House. See, that's collateralized. I can sell a house for value. So that's good debt. Good debt is also debt on a business because I can sell a business for value. That's good debt. It's collateralized. What's bad debt? Well, cars well, depending on the car, I could maybe sell it for some value. But it's primarily credit card debt. It's primarily credit card. What do I mean by that? It's not collateralized at all. What do I run a credit card debt on? Meals, entertainment, emergency services, vacations? Can I sell any of that for value? No. I want you to think about it. Every time you're financing credit card debt on something like that, you're raising your hand saying, cut my pay, at the tune of 20 cents on the dollar. You know, and if that weren't damaging enough, there's a second more damaging way in which you hurt yourself. And it's the reason why people can't retire. And what is that? And it's the reason why people can't retire. I'm telling you right now, it's overwhelmingly the number one reason. It's called time. I want you to think about something a second. You have an emergency fund, you have an emergency. How long does it take you to get out of your problem? A day. You pull it out of your account, you pay it off, you're on your way. You finance it on a credit card, how long does it take you to get out of your problem now? My record is 7 years, and all the time I've been doing this, 7 years. I had a guy at Letterkenny Army Depot. He's retired now. As a matter of fact, he called me the other day, as a matter of fact. But took him 7 years to get out of credit card debt. I want you to think about that a second. The least controllable element in accumulating money, least controllable element being time. That guy lost 7 years of his life to take care of his gap. Time he can never get back. And that's what I'm trying to tell you folks. That's the reason why people can't retire. When I've done reports for people and they see like the math ain't there, the math isn't working, they're not going to be able to retire, I'm telling you, you know what typically the first words out of their mouth are? I had this happen 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it took me 2 years to get out of it, 3 years to get out of it, and I just never caught up. I just never caught up. Listen, you have to worry about this, and your teachers never did. Your parents never had to worry about this. You do. We become a consumption-based economy, folks. Did you know that? We have. This economy has transformed itself into a consumption-based economy, and if you doubt me, let me give you some statistics. The savings rate in this country fluctuated between 1960 and 1990. Our savings rate fluctuated between 8 and 10%. We were pretty good savers. We were a savings-based economy. 1990, something unusual happened. It dropped to 4.5% in the 1990s. It dropped even further from 2000 to 2009. You know what it dropped to? 1.5%. We saved at the same rate as what we were during the Great Depression. And now it was back up the previous decade, this last decade, from 2010 to 2019, it went back up to about 4.1%. 4.1%. We're not even close to 8 to 10, though. What caused this decline in our savings rate? Because people tell me, well, it was the economy. People, the depression, comparing it to the Depression, people were giving up their kids during the Depression. You can't tell me it was the economy. People were giving up their kids back then. What happened? Easy access to credit is what happened. You can buy whatever you want now and somebody will give you a card to buy it. And you can pay for it the rest of your life. Easy access to credit. If you doubt me, for those of you pre-retirement class sitting in this room right now, I want you to think about what you went through to buy your first house. What you went through. Today you could have no income, no job, and no assets, get a $250,000 loan for a house. That's how easy it is. You doubt me? When you leave here today, Google Ninja Loan. That's what the banks call it. A ninja loan. No income, no job, no assets. And that's what they call it. Now, I don't have time to get into it. It caused a financial crisis in 2008. But my point is, this is dangerous. Very dangerous, and it's been destructive. And we got to get back to being a savings-based economy, okay? And so you got to protect yourself from credit card debt. I'm telling you, if you doubt me, how many credit counseling services did you see 30 years ago? You can't turn on the TV without seeing one. Credit scores, nobody worried about that. Your parents were lucky to have a gas credit card and one credit card. My kids get credit card offers in the mail. You got to protect yourself from this. Write this down under emergency fund, 3 to 6 months worth of income. 3 to 6, no less than 3, no more than 6. Like, why no more? People often ask me, like, why no more than 6? What type of return are you getting? You're not getting anything. I mean, you know, you're not building wealth is my point. So no more than 6, but no less than 3. No less than 3. You got to be liquid 3. And if you do have an emergency, build that back up. Okay? Now, once I get that done, I get a will done. Documentation, my final wish is control from the grave. If you don't have a will, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, whoever you live has a will on your behalf. But guess what's written in their will? Themselves. If you default to the state, they're written in. All for the cost of doing business. Now, if you like the state, then keep it. If you have a problem with that, I'm not here to promote any companies. You can go online and get a will done, though. It's not that expensive. Okay? But I would recommend, you know, I would probably go to an attorney. It's not even that expensive to go to an attorney these days. Get a will written, though. Get that control from the grave. When you throw money on the table, you don't know how a family member is going to react. Also, I talked about before the importance of making sure your beneficiary designations are right, because that's going to supersede your will. Make sure your beneficiary designations are an appropriate reflection of who you want to leave your money to. They don't care what's in your will. Remember, 1152, 3102, 2823, and TSP3. You chose 4, make sure. I'm going to give you some beneficiary designation tips tomorrow morning. ABC, I know when people call into ABC, they're going to tell you to leave your beneficiary designation forms blank. I know they do that. You can do that, and I know why they do it. But I'm going to talk about why you might want, there's good and bad to everything. I'm going to talk about why you might not want to do that. I know why they tell you that, but there's pros to that, but there's also cons, and I'm going to talk about both tomorrow, and you got to think this stuff through. Okay? So I'm going to give you those tips tomorrow. Now, once we break ground, we pour the foundation of this house. The foundation of this house is what everything rests upon. Everything is built on the foundation of your home financially. Financially, so everything is built on it. Everything depends on it. What does everything depend upon financially for all of us? And nobody is exempt from this. Yeah, go into it a little bit. Let me change. Yeah, you're right, but like, what's your most valuable asset? You're in the right track. What's your most valuable asset? Think of it in terms of that. What is the most valuable asset you have? See, you don't think this way. Everybody's thinking their home. It's you. You're your most valuable asset. You can't, I mean, I want you to think about it. You and it's not your job even. It's you and your ability to earn income. Your ability to earn income is your most valuable asset. I want you to think about something a second. You can't save, you can't spend, you can't consume. You're not planning for retirement unless you got an income coming in. Your ability to earn income makes everything possible. You're the goose laying the golden eggs. See, nobody talks about protecting the golden goose. You know what they're going to tell you after you get liquidity, you get a bank account and a will? Start building wealth. Start saving those golden eggs. You better protect the goose first. Because there's threats to that goose, you know. There's threats to that income. First thing is you could get hurt and not be able to work. And that's where disability insurance strategies come into play. We'll discuss disability benefits briefly tomorrow morning. We'll hit on that. If you get hurt and can't work, how much would they give you? The question is, you got to answer, and they gave you a worksheet to figure this out. Would it be enough to pay your bills? Does anybody know what they would get hurt if they got hurt and couldn't work, other than the folks in HR? Does anybody know? Good for you. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. One person, though. My point is, this is the reason people lose their house. When are they finding out what they're entitled to? When they're filing a claim. And if it's not enough to pay their bills, they got 2 options. One, lose their house, or liquidate their thrift. Neither one of those are too attractive. So you got to have a strategy if that were to occur. Is it enough to pay my bills? I gave you a worksheet to figure that out in your handouts. Okay, number 2, threat. I could die prematurely and not realize my full economic value. And that's where life insurance strategies come into play. And that's why I'm going to break down your FEGLI coverage. Okay, I'm going to break down the options you have, your basic and all of it, and your eligibility to carry it into retirement. Now, why would I do that? Your eligibility to carry the benefit in retirement. Because a lot of people go, why would you do that? Because I don't have an economic value anymore. I'm not working. You said it's my ability to work. I'm not working anymore. And, well, that's very good. I'm going to talk about that more tomorrow. But this is the lie. This is the lie I think people are told. And it's irresponsible, and it's because people don't understand it. See, people will tell you by my definition, you don't have an clinically, this is wrong, but you're told this. You don't have an economic value anymore. You're not working, so you don't need your FEGLI, your life insurance. That is a lie. I can prove to you right now you have an economic value by breathing in retirement. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. What's the max survivor benefit you can leave behind on your first pension benefit? 50%. Do the math. It's a 50% cut in pay. What happens if you die with Social Security benefits? 2 checks drop to 1. They get to hire 2 checks. Now that's it. Listen, all I'm saying is you have an economic value by breathing. That's a significant cut in pay. That's not my question. The question is, do I choose to replace it or not? That's your question. And only you and your spouse can answer that. And I find that the most irresponsible thing I have ever, like, that when I'm watching TV or listening to radio, I hear people say it's the most irresponsible thing because that's a values-based decision. That's not based on what they care about. It's based on what you care about. And it's the most irresponsible thing, and it drives me nuts. But the bottom line is, approach it clinically. Do I want to replace that economic value or not? Only you and your spouse can make that decision. But approach it clinically. I will give you a system tomorrow to figure out whether you should or not and what's appropriate for you. I got a whole system for you on that. Now, the third area is repairing the engine that makes the money. And that's where health insurance strategies come into play. And that's why I'm going to break down FEHB coverage. Spend most of my time tomorrow morning talking about your health care. There's a lot there. A lot of federal employees leave money on the table with the tax code regarding their health care. A lot. Okay, a whole lot of money. I'm going to tie it in with TRICARE because you got a significant financial pivot play there. I'm going to tie it in with Medicare. We'll discuss the Affordable Care Act. We're going to discuss the CARES Act. We're going to discuss all these laws. And I'm telling you, with these laws, there's certain things that are a heck of a lot more attractive now than what they used to be because of these 2 laws that were passed. And it has to do with the tax code, folks. Has to do with the tax code. Remember, taxes are a phantom expense? You can leverage your health care in a way that you can save on your taxes and lower that phantom expense using your health care in the right way. We're going to discuss all that. Big topic, so I'll cover that tomorrow. Okay? Did you know there's a program you have available to you where you can save your money in your health care and use it in retirement? You have a savings plan in there that you could potentially use in retirement. You're shaking your head, you know? Are you using it?
Is it the health savings?
Yeah, are you in it right now? Okay, I'm going to use you as a prop tomorrow. Okay, before I leave here today, I got 2 questions. I'm going to give you 2 questions. You just need to think about it. You got till tomorrow morning, and then I want you to tell the group. You'll know them, okay? But because I don't want to throw you under the bus tomorrow, okay? But you're number 67. 67 employees, okay? Okay, so we're going to talk about some things tomorrow that you can take advantage of there. Okay, now once we pour the foundation, we're going to start building this house. So we start with the first floor. Now, we're going to go to the left side first. This is your direct income sources. And we're going to do that this afternoon. We're going to talk about 2 things, your FERS annuity benefit and your Social Security benefits. Now, what this afternoon is going to consist of, if you are analytical, you will enjoy it. We are going to break down how they're going to calculate out both benefits. As a matter of fact, if you follow what we show you, you're going to be able to calculate out both benefits and make sure that they're right. So if you're analytical, you're going to enjoy it. Now listen, if you're not, please pay attention anyway. You know why? You need to understand how they calculate both benefits because we are going to give you financial pivots this afternoon, but you can't utilize them unless you understand the systems. Okay? So we're going to break down the systems and how they work, but that's important to understand so I can leverage what's available to me to take advantage of to put more money in my pocket. And hopefully we'll accomplish that there. So these are not lump sum assets. These just pay you an income based on formula. You can't call Social Security and say, cash me out. I don't want to participate. That's not going to happen. So we're going to talk about those formulas. Now, once we do that, we're going to talk about your qualified retirement money. Hey, Ryan, do we have any different colored markers? It would aid in learning if it would help in my learning process, teaching process. If you have them. If you don't, no big deal. Don't worry about it if you don't. I don't mean to put you, I just thought about it right now. Okay, now listen. Let me explain some of your qualified retirement money. That's your thrift. Now, the nice thing about your thrift is it ties in very well with tax strategies. What do I mean by that? The money you put into your thrift. Whoa, that dropped. Does it go in before or after taxes?
Depends.
Very good. It depends, but let's go traditional. Very good. Yeah, you had it too. Goes in before on the traditional, right? That is a heck of a deal. I want you to think about that concept a second. By saving money in your thrift, the IRS is saying to you, you get to pay less in taxes. You got a heck of a deal going there. So let me explain this. I got to just draw here because I don't have a thing. So this money goes in before taxes. You get to save on your income before the money goes in. Now, the interest I earn on this money, do I pay tax on it every year? No. If I did 25% in the I fund in 2017, I didn't pay tax on that gain. That is an unbelievable deal that I got to take advantage of. And if that weren't compelling enough, what else do you guys get as a benefit on your thrift? You get a match. You put 5 in, they put 5 in. That's like me standing up saying, I have an investment for you that guarantees you a 100% rate of return, and I could back it up. Would that like get your attention? It's your thrift. You got to take advantage of it. So they put 5% in. You put 5% in. Now let me explain something to you guys here. There is an economic risk of having all of your net worth in a qualified retirement account. Economists will tell you that. If all your money, if you could be a million, let's say you're a millionaire, but it's all in your thrift. You have $1 million in your thrift. You're a millionaire, but it's all in your thrift. There's a significant risk to my money. What's the risk? What's the risk to my money? I got $1 million bucks. Like it could be whatever a lot of money is to you. You might say $1 million, whatever. But my point is, whatever a lot of money is, but it's all in there. What's the risk to my? What's the risk? I want to challenge your thinking. You guys are too smart for this. We're going to put it in the G. Let's maybe pretend it's 10 million. I don't care how much it is. You're too. I want you to think. I want you to think. Think outside the 9 dots. We're putting it in the G. See, this is what I'm trying to tell you. We've been conditioned to think about investing and gathering wealth. Think differently. Thank you. He just said it. Taxes. That's my big problem. There's 3 prongs to his big problem. Number 1, because I get these tax benefits going in, do they tell me when I can take it out? When? Yeah, you better believe it. 55 for the thrift. If it were an IRA, it'd be 59.5. They tell me when I can take it out. Do they tell me how much I can take out? Well, no, we're going to get, that's a third one. That's the third prong. No, but I want you to think about it. I'm going to ask you guys, if I went to thrift, I've never touched it in my entire life, and I'm 65 and I'm retired, okay? I'm well past 55, I'm retired, and I go, I want my $1 million. Will they give it to me? Oh, they'll give it to me. Oh, absolutely, they'll give it. So they don't tell me directly. Indirectly, they do. Not directly, they'll give me my $1 million, but indirectly, they tell me how much I can take out of that. You know why? It's called taxes. Go to this sheet with the picture of the face on it. The picture of the guy who had a bad hair day. Yeah, that's a bad day. They were like, we got to take your picture for the tax fact sheet. I was like, I'm not dressed for this. So it was a bad suit and bad hair, man. I'm telling you. Everybody needs to pull this out. I'm not starting until everybody pulls this out. It's just this one right here. Yeah, it's right there. You got it right there. Yep. No, this is where learning is occurring, guys. I got you. I'll give you mine if you don't have it. You got it here somewhere. No, it should be. No, it's right here. I got it right. Yeah, right here.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody have the sheet of paper? Okay, just listen. You got to follow along. Go to the side with the picture of the face on it. Now go to the left side of that sheet. This is the tax code for 2020. This is the tax code for 2020. And these are the marginal tax rates for 2020. Okay, so let's make sure we're all singing off the same hymnal. We're going to go 2 down. Married filing jointly. Married filing jointly. Sorry do you need glasses over there? I'm sorry. He's like, I know, I do the same thing, man. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I got to make the print bigger here. Okay, now listen. I want you to take a look, married filing jointly. On the first, after your standard deduction and all that good stuff, I have no income. The first $19,750 I take out of that account. Work to the right. What do I pay in phantom expenses? No, I'm paying a dime on the dollar, aren't I? Yeah, dime on the dollar. Am I right? Okay, now what happens at $19,751 to $80,250? My phantom expense went up 20% now, didn't it? By the way, that's a tax cut from the new tax bill. It used to be 15 cents on the dollar. Now it's 12. And what happened at $80,251 to $171.50? Went up to 22 cents on the dollar. My phantom expense is more than doubled now. because they took out too much. It used to be 25 cents on the dollar. Now it's 22. Now you can see where it goes up and goes up and goes up till I'm at what? What am I at? What's the top one? 37 cents on the dollar. That's my question to you. Are they going to take a higher percentage if I pull out $100 out of that account or if I pull $1 million? If I pull that $1 million out, they're going to want around 350,000 of it in that neighborhood. So they're indirectly telling me how much I can take out. And you said before, what happens at age 72 now? What happens at age 72? Yeah. Let me explain this one. When you turn 72, who's ever holding your money is going to send you a nice friendly letter telling you how much you need to take out of the account. Don't be intimidated, thrift, who's ever holding your money, even if you roll it, they send you a letter going, you need to take $6,000 out of your account. We calculated it for you based on your life expectancy of age 84. All you have to do is listen to them, be a good patient, take the money out. What happens if you're a bad patient and don't take the money out because you're fine? Like they send you a letter going, you got to take $6,000 out. And he goes, I'm good. He gets another letter. It's a bill from the IRS for half of what he was told to take out. So if he doesn't take that $6,000 out, he's getting a bill for $3,000 from the IRS. So they tell you when you can take it. They tell you how much you can take. And if you don't start taking it, they're taking it for you. It's what I call dollars with handcuffs. Right? Every planning opportunity comes off the answer to a why question. Why do they make you take the money? Why do they care?
Because they want their taxes.
Yeah, thank you. I know, it sounds like a stupid question, but they haven't been paid on any of this. They want their money. Because this is what's going to happen when you start pulling out your money. Guess who's standing between you and your money? The IRS is standing between you and your money. So I have bigger dollars coming out, smaller dollars coming through, before it finally reaches me down here. Okay? See, they're standing between you and your money. This is you down here, and they're standing between you and your money. No, it's okay. Now, let me explain something here. This is the challenge with retirement planning, folks. This is the challenge with retirement planning. I thought I was in trouble for a second. I thought she was coming to escort me out. Let me explain something. They're standing between you and your money. The income tax code in this country came into existence in 1913. They had to amend the Constitution to empower the government to tax our income. It used to be just off of tariffs and things like that. Woodrow Wilson, under President Woodrow Wilson, they amended the Constitution to start taxing our income. Do you know what the top marginal rate was in 1913 when they started taxing our income? If you were the richest person in this country? 7. The average was 3. Average was 3. Top rate 7. Middle income 1. 1%. That was it. By the time we got to 1960, top marginal rate in this country reached 90%. 9-0. If you made above $200,000 in 1960 on an individual basis, $400,000 joint income, government took 90 cents on the dollar. John F. Kennedy cut the top rate from 90 to 70%. 20 years later, President Reagan cut it from 70 to 28%. 10 years later, President Clinton raised it to 39.6. The second Bush cut it to, what did he cut it to? 35. But that was temporary. He didn't have the votes. So they said, let's just make it temporary because he didn't have the votes. They said, in the case of the economy, we want to, rates will go. So if Congress didn't act, rates went back up under what they were under Clinton, which Congress did not act. So rates went back up in 2013 to 39.6. And now they're 37%. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. You're like, so what? So what? Who cares? You're talking rich people. I'm not rich. I'm middle income. You want to know an interesting little fact? In that 107-year history I just went through, middle income levels of taxation have gone up and down with upper income levels of taxation 103 out of 107 years. They've gone up and down together. Did you know that? Like, what I mean by that is when they've raised taxes on the wealthy, guess who else they raise taxes on? Middle income people. And when they've cut taxes on the wealthy, guess who else got a tax cut? And it just happened again. Now, that usually shocks people when I tell them that. What did they figure out 107 years ago? This has been going on 107 years. We still haven't wrapped our minds around this. What did they figure out? Because every time I hear him talking, he's going to pay more than me, but it ends up being me too. What did they figure out? Let me ask you another question. Has anybody ever, it sounds like I'm about to beat him up. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a brilliant man. But Warren Buffett complains that he doesn't pay enough in taxes. You ever see him do that? Probably not, but you have? He complains. He's like, it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. My secretary pays more in taxes than I do. I should pay more. why doesn't he just write a check? Has anybody ever just wondered, like, write a check? If you feel that, if you're really sincere, write a check. You can assuage your guilt right now. The only place that ever called him on it was Forbes magazine in an interview. They were like, well, you know, if you wrote a check, they would cash your check, you know. And he goes, no, I'm not going to do that. I had to be forced to do it. I'd be a poor steward of Berkshire Hathaway. So, like, they were kind of like, you're kind of doing it for PR. And he was like, yeah, well, kind of, you know. But my point is, why don't they take him up on it and go, hey, you want to pay more? We'll have you pay more. We'll have the Warren Buffett day. I don't do that either. Why not? Why not? There's two things that work here, folks. One, most of the money's in the middle class. Number two, so they have to justify taking more. But number two, guess what? They never get the revenue from the wealthy. Do you know why? Wealthy people have created the ability to financially pivot around anything they pass, and they know it. They're not doing anything illegal. I'm not saying they're crooks or doing anything. I'm saying they have the ability to pivot. What do they know about me and you? We don't have the ability. We've done one thing and one thing only. See, and this is the reason why. Everybody talks to you about building wealth. Nobody talks to you about how to get at it. And with that history I just went through, can you tell me what you're going to be paying in taxes 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or 30 years from now? Do you know what your tax rate's going to be? So, okay, how's this for retirement planning? I got a plan for retirement, but I don't know what my number one expense is going to be. How's that for a plan? Cash flow going in, cash flow going out, but I can't even, I mean, that's the problem. And see, that's the point. All your money's here. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but what if they raise rates to 50%? Okay? They raise rates to 50%. All your money's here. Rates are at 50. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Well, what if? And you get a call in the middle of the night from your son or daughter going, I need $50,000 for emergency surgery. Now, I love my kids. I'd want to help them. How would you feel about having to pull $100,000 out of your account to clear 50 of it? See, I'm not sure your opinion of that, but that would bother me. And see, this is the problem that people tell you. See, everybody talks to you about how to build wealth. Nobody tells you how to get at it. Because everybody gets paid to take your money and hold your money. Nobody gets paid to give it back to you. And see, this is the point. People tell you got to diversify investment-wise. No, you don't. You got to diversify tax-wise. And that's where you got to go to the second floor of this house. Roth strategies. Roth strategies. What do I mean by that? And what do you mean by tax diversification? This is how the Roth works. I wish I had different colors here, but it's okay. Oh, they got me? Oh. Good, that'll work better, because then I can answer your questions quick, because you guys are going to be shooting questions at me, and you're like, can I do this or that? And I'm going to use colors, because I'm going to say you can do the red or the blue, because I usually get a lot of questions off of this. Okay, so thanks for pointing that out to me. Okay, so this is how the Roth works. This is you. I have the same option of funds that I have right now in the thrift. Now, before the money goes in there, the IRS says, not so fast. Pay us our money now. You say, fine, here's your money, leave me alone. I can have $1 million in this account. It's time to pull out the money. The money comes out tax-free. There's no IRS sifter anywhere here because I paid the tax on it going in. See, I paid the tax on the seed. This is my point. 50,000 in this scenario is not 50,000. 50,000 is 100,000. Whereas 50,000 is 50,000 here.
It's actually 42,000, isn't it? Because you had to pay taxes on it.
Going in, I paid tax on the seed. But here's my point. I'm not saying...
So you're paying 58,000 to get the 50. You're paying 50, and you're going to come...
Yeah, here's my point. This has nothing to do with which way you're better. See, this is where we fall into the weeds and we lose track of our argument here. People can tell you you're going to pay more or less in retirement, but nobody has a clue. Anybody that tells you what they know you're going to be paying more or less is a liar. Unless they're planning on becoming president or speaker of the House, they have no clue. I have no idea where tax rates are going to be. The only thing, and you can't, by the way, can you control what they're going to do? Okay, yeah, all right. Send them an angry letter, see how far it gets you. My point is you can't control, the only thing you can control, it's controlling the uncontrollable. You can't control what they're going to do. The only thing you can control is the access you have to your money. This is a cost of getting at your money, and you want to do it in the cheapest way possible. I'm telling you, folks, it's not the person with the most money who wins. It's the person with the most options on their money that wins. You could be a millionaire. They're taking 90 cents on the dollar again, man. You ain't a millionaire. No, don't mean to hurt your feelings. You're a $100,000 heir. You're not going to care. See, this gives you the ability to pivot back and forth to control that expense. Okay? Rates are at historically low levels right now, so maybe I draw out of the black. You know, right now I probably would. Rates historically really low right now. Draw it out of here. Somebody comes in and goes, yeah, we're going to get you. We're going to raise your taxes. Fine. I can pivot over here and draw my money out of here. Does that make sense? Okay, now let me finish up with something. Some of you pre-retirees, I know, you're starting to give me dirty looks, going, where were you 20 years ago? Right? I was making a lot less then. It would have been a lot less painful, right? You're like, you're killing me here. I'm making too much money. I can't do this. Look, end the pipe dream of 50-50. Now, if I'm talking to a guy like him, I'd say your goal should be, when you retire in 30 years, 50% in both. Okay? I would be telling him that. Now, for you pre-retirees, you need to get, I'm not saying, look, if you can get 5%, 2% of your assets in here, get them there. Something. Doesn't have to be a lot. Get something there. You know why? They're starting to means test our government-administered benefits. They're starting to means test everything. We're going to show this to you this afternoon. If you make below $44,000 a year in retirement, 50% of your Social Security benefit's taxable. Half of it's taxable. You make 1 penny above it, and I mean 1 penny above it, 85% of it's taxable. This is what I mean. If you're clearing $2,000 a month, if you're making $2,000 a month on Social Security benefits and you're below $44,000 a year, 1,000 of your 2,000 is taxable. If you're in a 20% tax bracket, your tax bill's $200 a month. Okay? That's your tax bill. You make 1 penny above it, 1,700 of it's taxable now. That's 85% of 2,000. 20% of that, your tax bill's $340 a month. Do you guys know what's included in that $44,000 of income? MAGI, modified adjusted gross income. That's everything in the kitchen sink. That's your FERS annuity, 50% of your Social Security benefit, triple tax-free municipal bonds included in it, and anything I pull out of here. Guess what's exempt from the $44,000 of income? Anything I pull out of here. So if I'm at $43,999 of income and I want to go on a trip with my wife for $1,000, if I pull it out of here, in this example, I might as well turn around and send it back to them with another $600 on top of it, where I could clear it, get it free and clear here. So I just have a few bucks in there just to avoid the means testing part if I cross over a line. Does that make sense? I'll give you another example how they're means testing everything. You make 1 penny above $85,000 a year, your Medicare Part B is in Bravo premiums go up 42%. 42% premium increase. What's included in it? Same numbers, same stuff. Anything I pull out of the black is included in that. What's exempt from it? Anything I pull out of the blue. That's the epitome of a phantom expense. Do you think when you tell your doctor I'm paying 42% more for my Part B premiums, do you think they tell you, oh, I didn't know that. You get the good medicine now. I was giving you fake medicine before. Now you get the real stuff. It's not going to happen. You get the same treatment. It's a phantom expense. What I'm trying to show you with this model, this stuff is all tied together. What I'm trying to show you is not only do you need to plan in order, and you not only need to understand what you're entitled to and how it's calculated, you also need to see where it fits into your own personal financial home. That's going to help you make the right decisions. And the third thing is what I just illustrated, how a decision you make in one area being here can impact here and here, for better or worse. This stuff is tied together. And that's what this model hopefully will illustrate. How you can put more money in your pocket in other areas by making the right decision in other areas. And it comes off of pivoting. Okay, now the roof. Let me finish up with the roof. Go get lunch. Roof is when we retire because our risks change from protecting our ability to earn income to protecting our assets, hence the roof. Okay, outside of taxes, our biggest expense is health care. And that's where I'm going to break down Medicare and Medicaid and the voluntary long-term care program, which is potentially the biggest expense inside of health care. Okay? The rest of this class now is on your benefits. That's all we're talking about. I know. I appreciate you sticking through me with this. But I want to establish the right process. The rest of this program on your benefits, we're going to break it down within the context of this model. We're going to keep referring to this house as we talk about your benefits. So you not only understand what you're entitled to, where it fits into the house, that'll help you make the right decisions. It'll help prioritize your decision making. You build in order. And number 3, we're going to show you how decisions can impact other areas. Okay? Okay, come back at like 1:05. 45, is that fair? Well, how much time do you want for lunch? I'll leave it to you guys. 1 hour. You're the man. He's the good guy. I almost told you 45 minutes. Take an hour. Appreciate your time and attention, folks. Oh, are you? Good. Yeah, listen, I didn't have time.